Exhaling, and not a lot of it's going to the brain. So it's all just in and out. So anyway, so let's just do some deep breathing exercises. I'll do the first one, and then here it goes. 6 counts in, 6 counts out. We're going to do a couple more sets of these. Things to remember, don't let the air stop at the top of the breath. It's constantly going in, and then it starts to go out. It doesn't stop at the very top. No, if the air stops, then we're going to have some problems in our throat. We're stopping the air with our throat, and that'll create some problems. The air has got to have to constantly be in motion. The other thing, try to keep your teeth about as far apart as your thumb, because if you open your mouth any further than that, you're going to create a primary source of friction down here. And you kind of want everything to be kind of the same distance. The hole in your throat's about as big as your thumb, something like that. Okay. So keep those two things in mind. I'm going to stop you a couple other times, get some other things going, but let's just try to keep that in mind. So teeth about that far apart, and the air is constantly in motion. And okay, a couple other things that you want. When you're taking the air in, think of the syllable O. Think of the syllable O. Why? Because when you form the syllable O and you take a breath in, let's do it all together. 1, 2, 3. Okay, now let's take a breath in and form the syllable E. 1, 2, 3. Ah, friction. You don't want that. So try to think of the syllable O when taking the air in. The other thing is, imagine there's a camera. Maybe you don't have to imagine. There's a camera in the corner of this building, and it's watching you. And as you're taking the air in, your body's actually getting bigger. It's taking up real estate. You don't have to keep the same compressed attitude. Let the air come in and freely go wherever it wants to go. Don't think about where the air is going. The only feeling you might want to have is this feeling of coolness around your lips, like if you take a eucalyptus mint, you kind of, that kind of a coolness or something. It's none of your business where the air goes, okay? Body will take care of itself. You don't have to think about your left lung or your right diaphragm or, all the other things that we sometimes get a little complicated thinking. So try to keep these things in mind. Look at that camera monitor that's watching you expand out. here we go. We're going to add one other thing to this. We're going to maybe make a little bit of a physical exaggeration of how our body gets bigger when we take more area and we shrink a little bit when it gets down a little bit. Just to kind of make a point, okay? Here we go. So we're kind of small now. And we take the area and we get bigger. Okay, so these are kind of basic things I would like to do, and it's nice to have some cool water close by because you obviously are, you're gonna need to be hydrated. Okay? Cool, sparkling water is something I like to have, and that kind of helps things out. So we're going to add one other thing to this. Tuba players have to use a little more air than everybody else because we have to use a little bit more air than everybody else. So we want to try to expand our lung capacity a little bit, okay? So when we get to the top of the air, when we're all filled up, we're going to do something that you shouldn't do, but we're going to do it tonight anyway. We're going to stop the air and we're going to start doing some stretching while we're holding the air in, and we're going to take little sips of air. Okay? Here we go. So, and then we'll let it all out again. So here we go. Okay. Okay, we're just trying to see if we can get a little bit more there. And how many people are over the age of 24? Okay, you're dying. Okay, people who are below that approximately, you still have some chance to get just a little bit more air in your vital capacity. And the more flexibility you have, probably the better things are at. So these are some things we can try to do. We don't really want to worry about where the air is going. Our body can think of a lot better things than where the air is going. For example, absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. What's your name, pal? Aaron. Aaron saw this little book coming through it, and all he knew was that it was going to hit him, and he's going to have to do something with it. And so he went ahead, and he didn't have to say, "Oh, my left elbow is going to have to work up and get the bicep going, and then the tricep going, and then the book is coming along, and fifth, fourth, second flying, and grab onto it, and there it is. He's got it. All it was a simple command. Just grab the book before it hits me in the face. Okay, and that's all he had to do. When we were taking air in, we don't want to think about what's going on inside our bodies. Okay, we want this to be kind of an automatic kind of thing. So, why don't you all have a seat? And let's see. I might as well do something. Some people are really for the mouthpiece buzzing, some people are not. It doesn't really matter. There's kind of a strange combination. It's kind of a gray area whether it really helps or not. But one thing for sure gets some air going. So I'm going to play a little exercise. It Play it again. Let's just do that with a mouthpiece. If you're right-handed, use your left hand. You're left-handed, use your right hand. We want the sense of unfamiliarity to go mouthpiece to go wherever it feels like going, okay? And brass players are in any brass. First one, going, here we go. 3, 2, Big breath. We'll have 4 counts of inhalation, and then we'll do it. Okay, 1, 2. Half step down to an A. 1, 2, 3. So essentially we're going to go E, O, E, we're letting the vowels, the syllables kind of help us get to these lower notes and higher notes. It'll help out when we have certain excerpts, orchestral excerpts that we have to do, whether it's the second suite, a Poulsbo, the first military suite of Poulsbo when we're doing the thing that starts off with a low E flat. If we're going to do, can I have that C tube up here for a little while? I'm so much more used to using a big tuba than the pea shooter. So if I'm playing, for instance, a little solo from one of the military instruments that goes off Poulsbo. Get to these notes, okay? And if I were to play, say for instance, something from the Mahler First Symphony, which I would use a smaller tuba at. Syllables to help me get some of these notes. So kind of keep that in mind. And this goes for any and all brass players. So let's go ahead. We're going to do a little bit more tonguing. What's your name, pal?
Cassidy.
Okay, Kathy. Thank you very much. Very nice. So we're going to use. Listen to this pattern. Notice what I'm doing. I'm trying to kind of do the combination of single tonguing about as fast as I can go. That's as fast as I can go. That's about as fast as I can go with single tonguing. And then after that, I'm doing double tonguing after that. So we're going to use that C. It's a simple exercise you can do. It's doing a little warm-ups before you get to band practice. So you're all warmed up basically by the time you get to band practice or orchestra practice or your quintet or something like that. It's all stuff that you can do on the mouthpiece just before you have to get things going. So that's about as much as I do with mouthpiece buzzing or anything like that. The other thing I will do is take any Bach chorales that I'll find or little things that you would find in a hymnal and have a drone going on with whatever key you happen to be in, and I would buzz through the soprano line, buzz through the bass line, buzz through the tenor line, buzz through the alto line, just with the mouthpiece and having the drone going on in my ear with one of those apps like a TV tuner. I hope I don't know if any of this stuff is, I don't know how many people are catching these things and know what I'm talking about. I'm not sure exactly what it is how much of this stuff is actually that many of you are acquainted with or not, so I can't demonstrate on a board or on a screen. Anyway, hopefully over the next course of an hour or so, we can explore some of these things. And by the way, if you have any questions, stop me. There's nothing. I'm not a Rhodes scholar. I might go over something very quickly, or if you're not explaining it well enough, I'm very game to just stop and try to make things just a little bit more clear. So please have the courage to just say stop, and I will. Okay. All right. Any questions so far about any of this that we talked about with warm-ups or whatever? So, okay. Who would like to play? Kathy. Lovely.
Cassidy.
Kathy.
Cassidy. Like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Cassidy.
Yep, there we go.
Cassidy. I'm sorry. Cassidy.
All good.
Okay. Come on up.
You need this? Huh?
There we go. I tell you what, why don't you sit over here, because if I demonstrate, I can't be down the end of it, but I can push it on this side, okay? My teacher, Tommy Johnson, was always on my left. He was always on my right, so when I could hear him, he was like right in my ears. So, it made all the difference in the world. What are we playing today?
Well,
Are you a student at where?
I'm at Pacific Lutheran over in Tacoma.
Okay, so you study with?
The Qualities.
Okay.
And I brought
Two excerpts. Okay, so we have the opening from the Meistersinger by Richard Wagner. This is a very famous excerpt. It's every audition has this on it, no matter what. It just always is there. And then and later on, the Trophy of Fifth Symphony, which is also found on many Tuba auditions. So well, let's hear the section from the Meistersinger.
mind if I play folks?
Oh, please play some notes, warm up. That I thought was really good in your playing. First of all, you chose a very good tempo to play this thing in. My basic rule of thumb when it comes to playing excerpts is you play the fastest tempo that's acceptable. You don't want to play things too slow, otherwise you're going to die, the audition committee's going to die, your audition's going to die, everything's going to die, and you're going to run out of breath doing it. So you try to take the quickest tempo you can, so it's not boring, but you're not going overly fast. You're taking something that is more or less the right tempo, but you're kind of on the quick side, kind of on the quick side. It gets you through more of a phrase with the same amount of air than if you were going slower, you wouldn't be able to last as long. What you want to try to do is to give the illusion that you're a musician playing a tuba, and therefore you want to try to have these lines go on. You don't want to just be a single note type of player. You want to actually have these phrases that actually go over the length of time. And the way to do that is to have a faster tempo so that you can last longer. You can keep the vector going, the forward vector, just keeping the line going. This was really good. Now, what's the articulation marking, Cassidy, at the front of this thing?
Molto marcato.
Molto marcato. Remember, it's not marcato, it's molto marcato. Okay. In fact, with every articulation in this excerpt, do you remember what the very beginning and the very first, very beginning? What is it?
Molto tenuto.
It's molto tenuto, not tenuto. It's molto tenuto. And this is molto marcato. And halfway through it changes into something else, right?
Yeah.
And what does that change to?
Molto legato.
Molto legato, okay. So everything is basically exaggerated a lot. And there's another one which is never asked in auditions, and that's the
Molto pesante.
molto pesante, very heavy. Okay, so we want to try to keep these. Our goals as tuba players is to go ahead and try to make the molto tenuto different from the molto marcato, different from the molto legato, different from the molto pesante. And we're trying to keep these articulations, the way we approach every one of these notes, very differently. We don't want everything to sound the same. You want it louder or softer. No, it's more than that. We have to try to keep the articulation very, very different from one another. So it's almost, it's a whole new thing. So keeping that in mind, would you mind starting at the beginning of this thing? And keep doing actually more or less exactly what you were doing. And in addition to that marcato, keep the line going. As you were, but even more so. We want to keep this horizontal line going, big time. Okay. Okay. So when we're talking about marcato, how would you describe, if you had to describe how you're playing a marcato, or a multimarcato? How would you characterize it? If you had to, in any way possible.
In this context, I'm thinking bouncy.
Okay, bouncy.
Not heavy yet, but sort of bouncy.
Bouncy, I can kind of translate that and say probably a little more ping on the front end and a little bit lighter in the middle. So we have, if you exaggerated it, it might even be, you might even want to call it a forte piano. In other words, boom, boom, bell-like tone, boom, that type of bounciness, we boom, 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 boom. So it's kind of, if we were to put marcato or multimarcato on steroids, it'd end up being forte piano. Just for fun, just as an experiment, and this meeting never happened. Go ahead and play each note as a forte piano. And of course, you know, I'm giving you a laundry list, and so now the tempo started to slow down a little bit. But that essentially is kind of what we want to go for in this context, okay? So maybe taking a little bit of the paying off the forte piano. So take it down 10%, but still think of it as being forte piano in a consistently faster tempo as you did, okay, Cassidy? Tick, 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 tick. Okay, so in a way, that might be a little bit closer to maybe what that multimarcato is all about. And certainly, if you're asked to play it, if say you're in front of a committee or something and they ask you, can the candidate please play it with a little bit more marcato or a little bouncier, or the conductor might come up and say, could you play it a little more chartreuse? You know, I mean, you'll get all types of very fascinating descriptions of what they want, and you have to translate that into tuba ease. And okay, what's he talking about? You know, so then you have to go ahead and translate it into something. But one of the things I thought was really good about Cassidy's playing was this tendency that we all have as human beings. Why it is, I don't know. But if we have a long note to hold, and we have to come in on a weak beat after that, we have a tendency to be late. This is what I usually hear. Bum, 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 bum. It's always late after we have a long note, and then we come in on a weak beat, and it's late. But you were like right on the money. So in fact, there's a friend of mine I went to school with, Larry Zalkin, who used to tell tuba players, almost imagine it's coming in a 16th note ahead of time. Bum, 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 bum. To get that note, just to make sure it comes in on time. Okay, and there's many excerpts that kind of have that particular rhythmic characteristic, but you were right on it. So, and then when we and the trill is fine. We all think the trill is a big deal, you know, and but can I show you something about the trill? Which can I use your instrument? There's a characteristic about this trill, because it's such a big deal. It's towards the end of it. Now, do you play it, if you tried to play it with just using the actual trilling, if you listen very carefully, you can actually play both notes with the same fingering. I mean, it doesn't really, it's not really doing anything. You have to do kind of a combination of something with the lips and then doing something with the fingers. And you can end up doing a lip trill, which is you just use your lips think it's such a big deal. I went to a tuba camp many years ago, wow, 1984. There was a great tuba player there from the London Symphony, John Fletcher, who said, well, it doesn't matter what you do up there because no one can hear the difference. Let me show you. And people didn't know the difference, you know, it just sounded like a trill to me. You know, that's how it turns out, you know, it's just a tuba. Anyway, you can get a lot of mileage out of that with the trombone section. So, could you play the next section, which is molto legato?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, remember, this is not just legato; it's molto legato. I'm sorry, it was my fault. Okay, so if we were trying to get this to be even more legato, we could almost think of it as maybe being fast glissandos between the notes to the point where it's you've heard string players play and they can sometimes get the notes to be that smooth together.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if we listen to someone like a Yo-Yo Ma playing cello, who has so much incredible control, and a cello can make so many more different types of sounds that we're green with envy. We can't do that. So if we can try to get that portamento to happen, one of the ways we can do this, I learned this from Dale Clevenger, one of our great horn players in the Chicago Symphony. He says, I'm thinking of the way he would say it, but you actually go ahead and you move the valves a little bit slower. You move the valves a little bit slower so it does have that character. Can I demonstrate? So okay. Because a lot of times we'll go ahead and we'll think legato simply means, well, don't tongue. That's the definition of legato, don't tongue. Which it means you're describing something that isn't in order to get what you're trying to do. What he would try to say is, listen, why don't you go ahead and move the valves a little bit slower and almost make it like a fast glissando happening. You hear a difference? There's just a little bit of a difference there between and there's subtleties that we can try to get into our playing, and it makes a difference. Also means that, say, if you had something where you wanted to get a little bit more of a connection, you can, but you want to have a little bit more articulation, you could actually push the valves down a little bit stronger, a little bit quicker, and actually get that to happen. There's a little section from the Mahler Second Symphony, which goes something like this. I'm slurring, but I'm pushing the valves down rather quickly. In fact, I'm actually picking up the second valve and kind of making kind of a fast glissando there. change exactly what we're doing here. So could you, I know it's gonna be a little bit of an experimentation, Cassie. Could you go ahead and just try this molto legato section and move the valves down a little bit slower, okay? Can I use another C tuba? Sorry. So this would be regular legato. And what I'm trying to get is about that tempo. We try to get 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. I think maybe if you recorded yourself from far away, then you would go ahead and you could actually hear the difference between doing it regular. You want to make sure that the differences that are happening are audible out front. That's the big test is way out there. You know, it's gotta be apparent out there. And so these are the things we want to try to do. Right now, there's also one of the things you're doing is you want to make sure that the horn isn't playing you. You're playing the horn. When you're going down to the low D, it's kind of a bumpy when you go from 1 and 2 to 4. There's kind of a bump there. If you could go ahead and maybe play it 1 and 3, not supposed to do 1 and 3. It's a sharp note. You know, you're not supposed to do that on the instrument. But it's also very smooth. So in order to get that smoothness, go ahead, make up for the bad intonation by lipping down, maybe moving a slide around or something like that, so that you can still get that smoothness without having to use regulation fingers. Sergio Carolino is one of my favorite tuba players. He's a Portuguese tuba player. He's amazing. He has a 7-octave range on an off day. I mean, the guy is unbelievable. But he talks about using saxophone fingerings. In other words, use any combination of valves that you can get to get a better result. It doesn't matter whether it's supposed to be the right fingerings or not. Go ahead and use fingerings that will make a better result in the end as far as the sound is concerned. Whatever it happens to be. So. Let's play together. 1, 2, 1, 2. You really come, okay, it's a crescendo, and it keeps going, and it says crescendo, and then what does it say after that? What's the next marking it says?
Right here?
Yep.
Più forte.
Più forte, and what's the next marking it says?
E più forte.
E più forte. So over 2 or 3 lines, here's this big crescendo. No one's gonna notice that crescendo over 3 lines. So what you do, you keep the intensity going almost about the same, but then when you reach the end of that, the last 2 or 3 measures, that's when you bring the drawbar back. That's when you open her up, and that's when you make the big crescendo. That's when people are gonna notice. You know, you're pulling, in parlance of stuff that maybe I'm the only one who can understand in this room, you're pulling 13,000 tons up a 2.5% grade, you got 600 tons behind you, you know, you've got 7,000 horsepower, and you gotta haul this thing up and over the summit.
I'm a steep locomotive.
Yeah, so you push it right to the end, and that's where you make the difference.
Right.
All of it. You'll never believe what happened last Friday afternoon in Orchestra Hall. I saw Maestro Harusa, Jacob Harusa. We did Shostakovich 11, and I went up to him afterwards, and things were just clicking. And man, we were both doing it at one another. You know, the Women's Association people were sitting over there, and then the manager said, "What are you doing for Pokorny?" No, we're talking. We know what we're talking about. Yeah, he was conducting it, and let's start at the moment. Okay, and be ready for the very long phrase. The very long phrase. Make sure you suck a big bunch of air before that. That very long phrase that goes about 2.5 bars. So you have to really take in the air like crazy, and then keep pushing at the end. Think crescendo. Think crescendo. Think crescendo. That was my first lesson with Tommy Johnson. Think crescendo. Think crescendo. You keep pushing. Get the line going. Get the vector going. Okay, so here's the molto legato section. 1, 2, 1, 2. Let's have a hand for Prokofiev 5, but I don't want to get too far behind in case time is going up. I mean, I want to hit this one, but I want to make sure we get everybody in, okay? All right, good. Let's go on to somebody else. And make a line. We're doing Amaparito di Graziosa, and he's got this line to play with the English horn, and you can't tell where his sound ends and the English horn player's sound. You know, he just so you have that kind of that example in front of you, and you just try to do the same thing yourself. It helps to have the examples around. I don't know if I'm answering exactly the question you have, but some of these things, like having this horizontal line, is just, when you hear a lot of other people who don't do that, it really sticks out. It really sticks out. And then we hear it, we hear other people do it, and we're not only talking just brass players, but singers. You know, we listen to someone like Pokorny, who gets in the thin branches. You know, he starts to sing some of these things that are so high, and it's dangerous. He's going to fall out of the tree. You know, he's getting into the thin branches, and he's taking this chance. It's surface so late, you don't know whether the guy's going to fall off the high wire, and then he makes it. You know, and you're breathless, and your hands are sweating. How did he do that? You know, but you know he did it because he can do it, and he knew just how far to go to make it seem like it was something that was almost impossible to do. And he knew where the impossibility stopped. And the other thing is too, we have rehearsals, and we fail at rehearsals. Thank God we fail at rehearsals. push the end until you can't go any further, and then sometimes it fails. Well, then you regroup and figure out, okay, you have to get to that point and go just a little bit below it. When we hear people who go for something and they fail, we're right there. We know how it goes. So yeah, it'd be nice to hit every high G sharp that happens in B low. Sometimes it doesn't happen. Sometimes you hit the G sharp and other things don't happen. Yeah, it's. And then you got someone like Herseth who I don't know if you know about Herseth. He was first trumpet in the Chicago Symphony for many years, and I remember a student coming up to him after a concert and said, Mr. Herseth, you missed that second line G in Solomon. That second line G after number 169. And Herseth he always would come off with a great comment. He said, yeah, I'm just trying to give some of you guys hope. Yeah, that was really good. You know, there's nothing that's assured about anything we do. It's the stuff that we should feel bad about, or when we should have been putting in the time, and all of a sudden come barely in on a rest or something. But accidents happen. That's what happens in live performance. So. Okay. What's your name, pal? Thomas. What do you got?
Either the Shostakovich 5 excerpt or the opening theme Carmina Burana.
Just heard Carmina Burana the other day. Let's do Shostakovich 5. Yeah.
Do you want me to start here or just at the part?
Why don't you start at 29? And yeah.
All right.
So this is in the first movement.
Yeah.
And yeah. You got other excerpts from this, right? I mean, the big tune in the fourth movement.
Not right now. I'm working out of an audition list.
And this is the only thing they're asking you?
No, there's these 5, but they're not asking the other one from Shostakovich. No.
Wow, that's like going to Chicago and forgetting to order pizza. What's the point? Oh, I forgot to go to the Sears Tower. All right, let's get it.
Ask him who his professor is.
Okay. Well, let's explore that. View pause were fine, but when we have this little section here after 29. you're playing that, the trumpets have something else. Bom, 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 bom. So when you have the long notes, that's when you can afford to get out of the way.
Okay.
Okay. So could you go ahead and do that, starting on the C sharp? So a couple things here. They're accented, and maybe there's supposed to be some sense of marcato there, but we have to kind of read the notes in terms of that they're long notes. They're not eighth notes with an eighth rest. So they have to be long enough. When we play those accents, we have to get away from them again. Almost like that forte piano we were talking about with Cassidy. When you have the accents. When you have the accents, it just means the front of the note has a lot more energy than the middle of the note or the end of the note. So you hit it and then you get out of the way. Make room for something else to happen. One more time. So on those quarter notes, some length to the quarter notes, as opposed to. I don't think you were doing it that short. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but. One more time. Yeah, but when you come to the F, boom, just to the F and the D. Boom, 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 boom. On the F. It looks like, it doesn't look like a brick. The sound does not look like a brick. A brick is ba, ba. We want it to look like a nail. Bow, bow. More on the front end. Bow, and then it gets out of the way.
Right on the F.
Right on the end. I think that's closer to maybe the articulation that might be. If you really want to get down to nitty gritty, I would suggest we don't do enough listening. If you can get a recording of the Mariinsky Orchestra with Gergiev conducting,
Okay.
Valery Gergiev, great Russian conductor. I mean, spectacular. And there you're getting the real essence, the real tradition of what it should be played. I mean, if any group has the DNA that still kind of exists, it's like that. It's like listening to the Viennese waltzes of Johann Strauss played by the Vienna Philharmonic. Yeah, the Chicago Symphony would do a pretty good job. We probably hit all the right notes and yeah. But if you really want to get down to style, and that maybe it's better to go ahead and to listen to something where the tradition has been brought down and it's been learned and passed down. Who knows if it's been passed down tradition-wise as best it could, but it still exists pretty well. That's why when you have an orchestra, unfortunately, that say, for instance, went on strike like the Detroit Symphony, some years ago they were out for something like 2 years or something on strike. They lost a lot of their players that had been around since the time of Antal Dorati and Naimi Yarvi and Sexton Ehrling and all the earlier traditions, Paul Paret, and they got a lot of great players back. A lot of great players that came into those positions, but they lost the DNA. It's a great orchestra. The Detroit Symphony is a great orchestra, but they lost the DNA of what they had before. And even they would admit to it. It's a great orchestra now. The they lost what they had when they had these traditions of things that went back into the 1940s and 1950s and stuff. And it's good if you can try to find these orchestras that still have a little bit of their origins of how they played back in the day. Berlin Philharmonic. Well, in Chicago, with some of the stuff we do with Hungarian composers and that, because of the tradition that is there and how we try to approach some of that stuff. Who knows if we're successful at doing it, but it's something that we have an obligation to try to keep going. So that would be one thing I would try to do, is listen to an orchestra like that. Let's go on to something else, because there's a lot of stuff he hasn't asked about.
Yeah.
Why is it that there? Whoops, I forgot. Carmina Burana.
Sure. And it's just the opening. I also have this one. Amaparito Roca. You know that one?
Yeah, I played it in the Downey Youth Band when I was still playing clarinet. Still in the clarinet section. It's
All right.
okay.
Either one?
Let's no. Let's do Carmina Burana. Make sure that you have a lot of front end, and then get out of the way, because you're basically Marcel. No one's going to hear the follow through of any of this stuff, because there's so much percussion going on, and that it's just the first notes that you're going to hit, and you have to match whatever the bass trombone is doing, and that can be very challenging. So just make sure you have the accents there, and if you can't hang on through, it's probably not a big deal, because you're gonna because no one's gonna hear it anyway. You have to realize when you have diminishing returns, whenever the bass drum is going at it, sit back, relax, enjoy the weather. You're gonna get lost in the shuffle. I'm surprised that there's one lick in Carmina Burana that goes like this. You don't have to do them basses. Let's hit the Amaparito. Would you be playing this with a band, right?
So this is for, we have ensemble placement auditions coming up next week, and so it's band excerpts and orchestra excerpts. I think they plan to do this one with the band if they did.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's hear this excerpt from Amaparito Roca. How many people know Amaparito Roca? It's a band piece. Let's hear it. audition is concerned. Every note is accented, and we have to come up with we have to make some type of a phrase out of this thing. And maybe we have to figure out where, maybe a note we're gonna have to leave out to take a breath, maybe. So if you had to go ahead and put in crescendos and decrescendos and that to try to make some type of a line, what would you do?
I think I would definitely do like 2 bar phrases.
Okay.
And then maybe a longer phrase, 2 bar phrases this way.
And I would suggest if you're going to take a breath, that you probably use a pickup. I wouldn't breathe on the bar lines. Okay, so that would be one place that would be maybe a smarter place to breathe than right on the bar line, because bar lines have a tendency to make us think, oh, this must be a good place to breathe. Well, usually not. Bar lines are not really smart places to breathe. We can try to figure out other places to breathe. Try to second guess what your colleagues are going to do and find another place to breathe. And that also means maybe you can figure out where to leave a note out where no one would actually notice. Bum 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 bum. Because actually, when you're in the section, you can work it out so that, okay, you play this note, I'll play this note, you breathe here, I breathe there, you know, and you make it a cooperative. You don't. It's not that every man for himself. You know, you try to figure out how you can make it work out as a section. So give it one more try, and actually noticing this is just forte. It's not fortissimo or fortissimo. So it's not terribly loud, and you know you're spreading it amongst. Probably you've got the tubas, you got the baritone saxes, you got bass clarinet, you got the whole bottom end of the orchestra kind of helping out. Okay, so take it just for fun. Take a mezzo forte, find some other places to breathe, and you know maybe between yeah, go ahead and look at that. He uses a pencil. Why don't we use pencils in rehearsal? It's like really smart thing to do. And people come to me and they've got completely clean parts. How can you remember everything that you're gonna do? You can't remember that stuff. You have to mark in the part. You know, it's cheap. You don't mark in you don't mark up your National Geographics with a pen, but you can mark up illegally Xerox parts with a pencil. You know, so. I want to talk about the first part once again. Actually, can I use your horn? Then I kind of have an idea of what we're dealing with. Is that in B flat?
It's a C.
It's a C. That's when you come in and you be Mr. Big. When you come in and be the hero. All right? Especially toward the end. Yeah. And why is it in band that they always have the best tuba players, the supposedly best tuba players, play the highest part? when the highest part is the easiest part to play. It's the low register. That's where you need the meat and potatoes. The best tuba player should be playing the bottom part, so that because that's the hardest thing to do. It's any band directors around? Be a revolution. Be a revolution. Take the best tuba players and make them play in the low register. You know, that's where it really needs the help. You know, because you have a choice here. Or that's where you need good stuff to happen. And then up and down, and then you get out of the way. You're the soloist there for a while. And then you get soft, really soft, because that's when the melody comes in. So that would be the smart thing I would try to do. And then that's where you come out. You're the soloist again. You have to be like a great jazz person. You know when to come out, when to be front and center, and you know when to get out, when you get in the back. Okay. This is a nice horn. You get a lot of jazz.
Yeah.
Just take this. Boom, boom, boom. Yes! Who heard the accent? Yeah, baby. Yeah, got the accent. All right. And they don't ask.
They are asking the second.
Okay, why don't you play this last part just so we understand how it goes? Okay, so you're going to have to figure out the same thing with that string of eighth notes that you figured out up there.
Yeah, I think I want to do
Now,
these on these turnarounds.
can I have your horn a second? There's some interesting things in this. Let me have your horn. Because there's some 16th notes in here. And the problem is, especially with tuba players, our fast notes always get lost in the shuffle. Always get lost in the shuffle. We've got to do something more about that. So what's in the part here? I'll go slow so you can kind of hear it. Wait a minute. Are we in C? We're back in C. Okay. What are we going to do with that? As tuba players, we're going to let the eighth notes kind of let them ride by themselves, but we have to dig out the 16th notes. It sounds very strange to do that, but in a way, that's kind of what we have to do. If I was playing excerpts from, say, Jupiter from the planets, and if I was sitting here and we were in a small little cubicle studio and you'd hear the 16th notes just fine. But if I got on a concert hall stage and I was trying to project to the back row, you would never hear that. Let me show you. Okay. You can hear it fine, right? Now, I'm going to play it for you a second way. Sounds pretty weird. All the 16 notes being right out. stay right there. I'm gonna play it the exact same way, but I'm gonna go somewhere else.
I heard that.
Oh. How much was it? 12? 10?
So this is the first way, as best as I can recall. And here's the second way, best I can recall. The second way again. So, the second way probably sounds a lot less weird. It just sounds like it's clearer, like with the 16th notes. Right? I'm searching for an answer here. Right, telling you the answer. So even when we're going ahead and we're playing, and we're practicing, say, Arvin's exercises and that goes something like this. We have to practice them as if we're playing them in the orchestra or in the band. We have to bring those notes out, just like we would if we were playing in the band. We bring out the 16th notes. We bring out the fast notes because that's what's going to get lost in the shuffle. Otherwise, it just gets lost in the shuffle. We have to bring out the fast notes. And what about when it's really critical? That's the stuff we have to practice. It's the stuff that doesn't seem like it's that big a deal, but if we're doing it right and digging it out, and that's what we have to do. Okay. So could you just play this very last part again? The name is Thomas. Sorry. Could you go ahead and do this and bring out this? Okay, so let's work it the other way around. Make the eighth notes a lot softer. It's more fortissimo. Make the eighth notes mezzo forte, just between you and me, and we'll bring the other notes up to the fortissimo. Okay, so it's just mezzo forte, but we bring out the 16th notes. That's the basic idea, okay? And we have to do that in Strauss tone poems. We do it on bum ba ba bum, bum ba ba bum. No, bum ba ba bum, bum ba ba bum.
Okay. Yes.
All right. Well, very strange excerpts.
Yeah. And then the first one is
What?
the number one on the list is that.
Okay. Go right ahead. Look, it's a pleasure to hear you, Captain. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Any questions about any of this we've talked about so far?
How do you get such a tubby sound?
How do I what?
How do you get such a tubby, full, rich sound?
Sinus cavities. I don't know. I don't know how sound. You're kind of condemned to sound a lot of times.
Okay.
I'm lucky. I've got sinus cavities that just happen to fill out. But you think and you alter as much as you can, and you have great examples of sound around you. You just try to imitate it. You know, listening to Roger Bobo recordings when I was small. You know, wow, how did he do that? Yeah. Hi.
Hi.
Want to play?
Absolutely.
What's your name?
Chris.
Chris. Come on up. And as one member of the audition committee asked, two tubas, and smartly answered, "Please play breaks." What are you gonna do, Chris?
So I have both fountains and then Symphony Fantastique.
Well, let's start off with fountains. Are you you studying with John? And how do you pronounce his last name? I've never heard it. I've only seen it. The Cesare?
Caesar.
The Caesar.
Yeah.
Not the Cesare? No.
Okay, so this is one of the biggest excerpts in the repertoire. It's all low register. The person who wins the audition isn't the person who plays this the best, it's the one who screws it up the least. It's one of these excerpts. It's just it's a thing. So here we go. There's this rhythm. Unfortunately, I can't show it on the screen because there's no screen. But the rhythm goes bum 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 bum. It's a strange rhythm because it's very easy to turn it into bum 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 bum, as opposed to having the 16th come right on the beat. Bum 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 bum. And you do that very well. And then one little tricky thing that goes into the low E. So, fountains of Rome. So, which fountain is this?
Fountain of Truth. And Mtimet.
Trevi. Mtimet. Have you been there?
I
Have
have.
you seen pictures?
Pictures, yes, never been.
Okay. So it's right across the street from the Pantheon, which is, well, it looks like it's almost two dimensions. It's like the dome of Mount Palomar from the 200-inch telescope. It's very, very similar, almost exactly. But in this fountain, if you can visualize the water rushing in, is a tremendous fountain. It's very, very large. And if you can imagine this water surging up into this fountain and then kind of spraying out, there are a lot of places that have an ascending line in this excerpt where you can kind of imagine where a lot of the ideas that Respighi got to this. Could you, okay, could you take it from, well, try your horse. Try everybody else,
Not taking it personally. It's sticky dollars.
So-
Sticky dollars.
So that's the motif that brings the water from the bottom to the top, okay? It happens about 5 times. It happens at the very beginning, and then it continues up, right? That's one place. That's at rehearsal 11. Then at rehearsal 12. That's where it happens another time. And then it happens right there, I think 5 after that. It happens, starts on a higher note. Okay? And then it happens a couple more times. So if we can kind of channel that energy, that upward mobility of this water going into this fountain, find the easiest one that's going to give us the example of what we want to sound like, then it might be this one that starts on the A, the one we just played. Think crescendo, think line, think vector, and try to put some energy in there. And dig that 16th note out again. And that's our paradigm. That's our model of what we want all these others to kind of sound like. That's the energy we want to have for each one of these that's happening. So even if it's only an excerpt we're playing, we want to have that energy happen. So that's what we're going to try to do. So could you play this one, that one that starts on the easy one, the one that starts on the low A and then stop at the F. Now, you're taking a breath after the very first note, which is kind of understandable because you're in the middle of trying to do. But if you crescendo before you take the breath, then you keep the vector going. Okay. This is think crescendo. Tommy Johnson's first lesson. It was the best $10 I ever paid. One more time, it's just a little more intensity on like. In other words, get all the way to the C sharp and then take a breath. It's going to have to be a very quick breath. Okay. Is that possible?
I believe so. Can make it work.
All right. And then what happens when you get to the high F?
Like image-wise, or
Yeah.
yeah, it's the water coming back down into the fountain.
Then there's a special marking on that F.
Oh yeah, Marcato.
It's Marcato accent. Now, it happens a couple other places in this. Can I get a horn again? So if I start at 12 accents, I'm going to try to point out those places where there are Marcato accents. Okay? We have to make those Marcato accents come out. Did you hear the Marcato accents?
Yeah.
We have to, okay, so here's the story. Chris is up here, and we're out here on the audition committee, and we're sitting here with our blank manuscript papers, and we're writing down, went down further than I thought, and we're writing everything you're doing, Chris, every single note, because we've got perfect pitch. And we're writing everything down, every marking, every dynamic, every rhythmic, whatever, every staccato, every staccatissimo, every forte, every fortissimo, every fortissimo. We are doing it perfectly, aren't we? We're writing all this stuff down because we're on the audition committee. And if I take your piece of paper that you've written on and you filled out, and we compare it to what is here on the music, we find that it's absolutely the same. It's absolutely the same. Okay? Now, that never happens. But it's a goal. It's what our goal should be, is to make things so clear up here with what we're playing that everything is heard out there and is notated out there. So it's more than just the notes. It's more than just, because a lot of us barely get past the notes. Okay, we have to sit here like a blue light special at Kmart or something, and this is a Marcato accent. It's a pianissimo. It's this, it's that, it's whatever. We have to go ahead. We have to do that. So it gets obvious. So it's obvious to all of you on the audition committee. Okay. So that's and it can't be just something that's apparent right here within 5 feet or out to the coat closet, in our little Wagner practice room. It's got to be obvious in a big hall. It's got to be obvious out to the back place. Okay. So I'm going to ask you to play this entire excerpt again. Okay. And bring out everything that you see. Okay. So let's see. There's Marcato. So okay, we're having a private conversation. There's Marcato accents at the very beginning of this thing. It starts out fortissimo. Okay. And then you leave it on. And then it jumps down to forte. Okay. So, but you play the low E a couple times, show them you've been playing a low E, because we have to have low E. And then pretend like you're a musician. Get out of the way. There's something more important that goes on these sides. Beep, bum, 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 beep, bum, bum. It's not the melody. Jeez. It's not the melody. Something else is more important. Okay, but then you get towards the end, there's a little crescendo, and then you have the pickup to the big melody at 12. Okay, and that's where you have to go ahead and let's actually blast through that. Don't breathe after the low E. Maybe breathe after the G. Ba, ba, ba. Think long. Ba, ba, and then suck the big air after that G, just like you did on the low A, right? And there's staccatos. There's a staccato on that thing. Bum, 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 bum. You have to let them know. Bum, bum, and then a Marcato accent after that. Bum, 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 bum. So staccato and then a Marcato accent. All that has to be obvious. Bum, bum, bum. And then here you have this rhythm. It has to be absolutely like you're working in a Japanese steakhouse. You throw the thing up in the air, the shrimp, and you fillet it 32 times before it hits the grill. It's got to be very, very clear. It's super sharp. Marco accent hit bum, bum, ba. Doesn't matter hardly what that rhythm is, but when you have ba. This is the big moment. Ba. And then this one there, and then of course go for the low E there. Good luck on that one. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. There's a Marcato accent there. This you did great, or right on the beat. That's exactly right. Bum, ba bum, bum, ba bum, 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 ba bum, bum, ba bum, 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 ba bum, bum. And then you're done. Okay, so with that private conversation, only you and I heard. You've got to bring all that stuff out to the audition. Okay, you're number 64. There's 152 two people who are auditioning today. You have to get their attention because it's the middle of Wednesday afternoon, everyone's dying. You gotta get their attention, okay? Stop in time to have a question or two and finish her out.
Would you rather hear fourth or fifth?
Let's start at rehearsal 57. That's a good one. So this is the Symphony Fantastique by Hector. There's two tuba parts. Why are there two tuba parts? Nobody knows. One was written in B flat, the other one was in C. What's told is he had two ophicleides up there because this was written before tubas were actually invented. An instrument called an ophicleide, and he figured one instrument would have some bad notes, the other would have some good notes, and between the two of them, someone would get it right. True. That's what we heard. That's the vicious rumor. Okay. And he'd go to various towns, and he'd be faced with to play his music, and he'd be faced with all these newfangled instruments. You know, this piece was written 7 years after Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. I mean, it's absolutely revolutionary. I mean, new instruments, new sounds, new everything. I mean, it's remarkable. And so he'd be furiously having to write new parts out in the afternoon of the concert because he'd be faced with a whole bunch of new instruments. You know, because communication wasn't that good. Adolph Sax invented the valve in 1835, and these newfangled instruments were coming into being, and all of a sudden he was faced with a whole bunch of new instruments, and he had to write some different parts on them. So it's kind of crazy. Okay, so this is rehearsal 57. It's kind of a big excerpt amongst them. Audition. Besides the notes, we've got long notes, we've got staccatos, we've got some accents, we've got dynamics that go all over the place. We also have to be aware of there's places where we're getting in the low register, and it says to make a deep crescendo, but as you go in the low register on a tuba, you're automatically getting softer. You're automatically losing energy because it just doesn't come out as strong as stuff in the middle register or the higher register. So we have to find those places and maybe have to compensate for the physics. and maybe keep the low stuff, maybe the low stuff a little bit louder, and then go ahead and then make the diminuendos afterwards. And you have two half notes in here that are marked with a staccato. Let me say that again. There's two half notes that have staccato. So you have to take the 19th century definition of what that means, and you're going to play them half value. So essentially, you're turning it into a quarter note or a quarter rest. But you've got to make them know exactly that you're nailing this now. Okay. So I actually have my instrument playing for this one. So, boom, bee, ba, da, ba, ba, ba. There's no staccato on that note there. Boom, ba, da, ba, ba, ba. Bee, da, da, ba, ba, ba. It's not boom, bee, da, da, ba, ba, ba. That's not what it says. It says boom, bee, ba, da, ba, ba, ba. And what do you do with the fast notes? Bring them out a little bit. Just like what we did with planets. So this one. There's some accents in there. See, that's where it says diminuendo, but it's diminuendoing anyway, so we have to keep the energy up so it will naturally go down. And then when it finally says diminuendo again, and then we let loose again. So those are some of the things we can try to make happen with this particular excerpt. So, and this, the other stuff, I would say this probably has more substance in it, Chris, than the other. I mean, go for the high B flat. Yeah, okay. There's some high stuff, but this has a little more substance, a lot more stuff that it's actually. So, I would love to catch some of this other stuff. I'm looking at the time. There's 10 minutes to 8. I would like to take some questions. So thank you for coming out.
Yeah.
I appreciate you coming out and bringing the music. It's very wonderful. Please give John the best. All right. I'm glad he can send you. Is there anybody else from?
Yeah, we have Adam.
Okay. Well, I want to make sure I catch some questions before we kind of finish up. Going as fast as I can. Okay. All right. Thanks, Chris. All right. What do you have to play? If there aren't any questions, I can listen to you.
Sure.
All right. Yes, sir.
So when we worked on the Carmina Burana, we talked about like the context and being able to take things easy because we know like in the actual performance there are like breaths we can take. But in the addition panel, would you suggest playing it like you're going to play it in the orchestra, or play it a little bit like too much to demonstrate that you can make it through this?
I would do the latter. Yeah.
Okay.
Show them that you can do it, because just because you're playing for an audition committee doesn't mean that they know what's going on.
Okay.
I mean, there's so many times. I mean, even when you're playing for a conductor, you bum 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 bum. Now you breathe. Now you breathe. Well, we've already taken 4 breaths. We took breaths a long time ago. But very few people realize. So yeah, we have to give the illusion that we keep going. And,
Okay.
yeah. So yeah, it's a good question. So yeah. Yes, sir.
How do you practice or work on getting up a really high register? How do you
How do I?
prepare for when you get really high, like high register, high range, like above the staff, like 3 or 4 octaves? Like how do you prepare when you get really high?
A lot of times I'll go ahead and I'll try to do octave exercises, and I will, since I don't have perfect pitch, I'll push all the vowels down and just order up an octave. I'll start on a note, say if it's in the middle register, and I'll just play an octave and use the syllables oh, wee, oh, and maybe start on a slightly higher one, oh, wee, oh, and then maybe another and I'll go ahead and do that. And sometimes I'll trick myself into playing higher than I can. Because we said, no, my high note's a high E flat. It's my limitation. I've worked for it. My E flat is as high as I can go. I'm living by that mantra. I can't go higher than E flat. And then you go ahead and you trick the student into playing higher than they can. It really loses lunch. When you show that you can do something, all you have to do is just hear it. Hear somebody else do it. It's like listening to Roger Vogel playing Encounters 2 for the first time on a recording. You look at me, oh, this is impossible, you can't do it, this is completely impossible. Then you hear someone who can play it, you go, oh, no. Yeah, somebody just proved they could do it. So I would kind of take that and just consider the possibility that it can happen. And channel yourself through some, great players like Sergio Carolina, or, that's always an inspiration. You can hear somebody like that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
I do have a short answer.
Because it's going to end in 4 minutes. I'm getting hungry. What do you have? What's your name?
Adam,
Aaron, sure.
I've taken a lesson from you before.
Where?
Over online stuff. On the pandemic.
Okay.
So I'm taking the Hawaii Symphony.
Oh, yeah. So did I. Oh, I lost it big time. It was 1978, yeah.
Is that when Richard won that?
Yeah, Richard won that.
So I have a short one. This is the second Petrushka excerpt.
Okay.
240.
Okay.
Play a couple notes.
Sure.
It is a 2-1.
Okay. So this is the horsemen clicking their heels as they're in the Shrove-Tide Fair, and it's after the big bear solo. So we want to try to make it as no accents at all. It's sort of, it's so tempting, So can we make it absolutely? I tell you what, let's start it off mezzo mezzo forte, and just make it completely even, okay? I tell you what, start on the B flat, and we're just gonna play B flat. Okay, just for fun, go to a low G and do it. Okay, that might be a good exercise just to do, because if you can do it down there, then you'll be able to do it. It's as simple as do the long one, because this is a long one. So take as big a breath as you can. Only think that's a forte. Only think that's a forte. We want evenness through all this. Okay. Okay. Now put a little bit of expression. Okay, so all you have to do is splice that into the first one, and you got it. Yeah. Okay. So if you only have if you only have a little bit of practice time, I would say practice the second one because it's a little bit harder. Once you get that, the first one will be fine. And don't think forte. Think maybe mezzo forte, più mezzo forte, because then we're putting less energy and we're still getting just about the same sound. You know, it's just when you're playing an audition, you're comparing against silence. Yeah. So everything's going to sound. So it doesn't have to sound really super big.
Can I try the whole thing again with that in mind?
Yep. Yeah, and that last one, make sure you let them know that the last one has an accent. So maybe back off just a little bit before the end. Bob, you know. It's just to let them know. Everything is relative. Everything is relative. So last one, mezzo forte, and then the last one, go for it. I'd say that's good. Yeah. That's good, Adam. Very good. Yeah. I'm glad. Short and sweet.
Yeah.
You got the job. Got a job in Hawaii. Your salary will pay for a rental car. Oh, it's too bad. No, the guy who came in as first horn he played a music festival in Colorado, and he was sporting a convertible and everything, and he got at the awards banquet, the musicians kind of gave a tongue-in-cheek award. He got the lifestyle that doesn't match salary at work. That was Bill Vermeulen. He is now famous for a lot of other things right now. So, okay, that's about it. It's the top of the hour. So thank you all for coming in. I hope you come out and hear the Poulsbo Community Orchestra playing, among other things, Tuba the Tuba and William Tell, is it? William Tell. What else are we playing, Jeff? Stars and Stripes. Oh, that's right. Stars and Stripes Forever. Guess who's going to play the piccolo solo?
I have a guess.
Yeah. You guys all come up. We'll all play it together. Okay. Thanks a lot for coming.